So we are actually in our bathroom, but more specifically, I want to show you about floor tile, ceramic floor tile, and what we had to do and kind of the way we set this up. Maybe you've done tile, maybe you haven't done tile, but I wanted to kind of go over it with you all briefly, just to help out, see if I can add some tips on laying out floor tile in a bathroom. So let's take a look at it real quick and I'll show you what we got. Sorry about the audio, the echo, I forgot my mics. Okay, so I'm doing this in a portrait mode. I'm not sure that's the best, but anyway, this is what we got. We got a 5 foot wide bathroom here, and we're using this mosaic tile. Now I wanted to kind of show you the difference between the two. The first thing I want to say is mosaic tile, particularly the small ones, there's one maybe a little drawback to it, and that is it does use a lot of grout. But the positives to doing mosaic tile like this, specifically these very small ones, is that you don't really have to cut it. There really is no cutting these tile because, let's take a look here on a piece of tile. Obviously we have the backing. We have these tile are obviously glued to a backing, which is wonderful. But also, if you need to cut it short or something like that, you just tear these little tiles off the backing. And like for example, I can show you here real quick what we got. So let's say you put the tile in over here and you're running it right here, and you can see, boy, it just completely blends in right away pretty quickly. But you can see we got it, it's hitting our toilet flange. So you can just take this tile completely off and you're good to go. You don't have to use a wet saw. So that's what makes it easy. Even here in this corner, if you can see, you can just pop these tile off, cut the mat beneath it, and it works great. It's a lot easier to do. So that's the first really big positive thing about these sorts of tile. Now we're going for an old theme here, an older theme in our building, on our barn. So this fits really well, but I want to let you know too where we got these tile. I'm going to have it posted below where we got the tile because I actually forgot the name. But the place is great, fantastic, great prices. And if you're going to do tile, they have stores, I think, all over the country. But anyway, needless to say, I want to show you kind of how we laid this out. Because these are mosaics, and typically even for general tile, let's say these were standard 12-inch by 12-inch tile, which this is 12-inch by 12-inch, just in a pattern. You do want to start it like this. You want to put your tiles dead center of your room first, equal on both sides, to the right and to the left here. And you want to have it going right down the middle. So when you lay this out, it is perfectly straight. And the big thing, particularly, I want to talk about this, is when you're laying out these tile, I use a straight edge here. And what we do is we kind of lay it here and we measure from here to the wall and then from here to the wall. The biggest thing you don't want is you do not want this wall to be out of square with your tile. Now on mosaics, it does not matter a whole lot because you're not going to be able to tell. But I will tell you, it's going to mean a lot when you have, let's say, a 12-inch tile, which is pretty common, because you're going to see an angle. You're going to see this tile getting, let's say, for example, bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And up against this line here, particularly up against the base trim, because there's going to be base trim here, you're going to see that line, and you're going to see it getting wider and wider. Now, if your bathroom is out of square, okay, let's say, for example, it's off 2 inches from front to back. How do you compensate? Well, in a bathroom, it's kind of easy because you could compensate on either side, but if you do that, again, it's going to still, 2 inches from front to back is a lot. So what's going to happen is it's going to get wider and wider and wider. What I would do is, because this is a bathroom, to the left side, you have the toilet and you have a vanity. That's going to cover the preponderance or the majority of the edge. So you're not going to see it. So I would square it to, in this case, the right wall. I would square it here, make sure that this here is equal, perfectly equal. Okay? And if it's not, then tilt this tile, turn this tile a little bit, like that, and tilt the whole thing slightly. Laying tile is sort of like laying hardwood floor. It is really a balance. You don't want to do anything that is too sudden. If you're trying to make up, for example, 2 inches from here to here, you want to try to do it subtly. You don't want to do it, you want to try to, ease it slowly because otherwise it's going to be too noticeable. And things do happen. Walls are crooked, particularly if you're doing a remodel. Walls, you don't know the last guy who came in and built this. So that's the first thing. Now, typically what I do, I lay my tile out dry, like I've done here, lay them out dry. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to lay this out. And I'm going to put in essentially a line here. So I have a guideline. All right, so it's a little hard to work here on this, but I'll make sure that this is perfectly level, and I've already clarified that this is exactly the same distance from the wall as this side. This is a 5-foot wall, a 5-foot wide bathroom, so it's 5 tiles wide. But we make this dead center, and I can kind of put a little bit of a guideline on this side, right? And even here, because we're going to remove these tiles. Now remember, what's going to happen is you're going to cover this with mortar. And what's going to happen is you're not going to see those lines that well, but you're going to see the line in front of it. Also, I just want to say something. When I first started this, doing tile, this is 25 years ago, I didn't know anything, and I learned through hard knocks. The first is, you can see here, we got a hardy backer, cement board hardy backer. You may all know that, that's great. And typically, you should glue it down. So you use liquid nails or something, and you glue it down and then screw it in. That is the best way to do it. On this floor, being number one, I have the joists on 12-inch centers, and I have a 3/4 inch subfloor. I didn't glue it down. This is a narrow, short thing, okay? But you typically want to do that. You want to glue this down, particularly on a larger space. You want to glue this down and then screw it down, and then have the hardy backer down, which is a cement board, essentially. And then you can put the tile on here and you're good. Now, if you don't do that, well, let me share something else. Floor tile, you use mortar. That's another mistake I made years ago, and don't laugh at me too much. I used what they call tile mastic on the floor one time. And anybody who knows that is probably laughing at me hysterically. Tile mastic is for wall tile, okay? What's the difference? Well, mortar is like cement. When it hardens, it does not flex. However, mastic, made for the wall, flexes. So if you were to use mastic on the floor, when you step on this tile, guess what happens? It flexes. Why is that a problem? Just like not having a good solid foundation, when you step on this, it will flex slightly. What does that do? All the grout starts popping out of all these cracks, of all these gaps. That's right. My first tile job, I said, boy, why is the floor always looking messy? And it's because the grout kept popping out, because I used mastic on the floor. So just a reminder, mortar for the floor, mastic for the walls. You may know that, but hey, I didn't, so maybe someone else didn't. Anyway, this is the way you do it. You kind of lay it out, dry lay it out, dry fit it, kind of have a good idea of how it's going to go. Then you mark some of your lines, and you're going to want to, again, make sure you're even as you run up, and so you're not looking, so this whole thing isn't crooked. Again, on mosaic floors, probably one of the easiest floors to do, for sure. Hey, Jim, again, I just wanted to touch base real quick before I end the video about installing this tile. I just finished it. Obviously, it's not grouted, but I just mortared it all in, and I wanted to just mention a couple things for you So let me show you what I did. Okay, so we got all our tile in, and a couple of quick notes I want to mention. It worked as I thought, pretty exactly the way I thought it would come out. And it went in pretty easy. A couple quick notes on this stuff before you go and do it, on these mosaics in particular. When you put down the tile, there's a lot of space here, and if you use too much of the mortar and you don't use the right size trowel, and you don't scrape this down to the floor, meaning that they're leaving ridges. This I think is a quarter inch, 3/8 inch trowel. I think it's quarter inch square trowel. If you don't do that properly and you put down too much of a mortar, when you push it down, it will squeeze up in these holes where the grout would go. And the problem with that is if that hardens in there, you can see it right there. If it hardens in there, what'll happen is it'll turn to basically cement, and you will not be able to get a good layer of grout in there. So what you do is, this is what I kind of do. I'll kind of show you real quick. So I get in here and I'll just use a knife and just dig it out a little bit and wipe it off. And I'll try to make sure that I'm getting just getting at least some space. Doesn't have to be super deep. You know, you're just getting a little bit of space in there so that the grout will be able to sit. Okay, so I've done that as I've gone along, and there's a couple of spots, but not much. That's because you gotta make sure you do not, number one, put too much mortar in. Number two, you don't push down super hard. You just kind of rub your hand over it lightly with light pressure. Okay, if you push down too hard, it'll come through these little spaces and you'll have a mess on your hands. Another note that you want to be careful of: do not leave any residual mortar on the tile. If it hardens, it is like stone, it is cement, and it will be nearly impossible to come off. Okay, so you really want to have it clean like this. As you can see, there's very little mortar on top of these tile, and that's the way you need to leave it. So it is a kind of a gentle thing you need to do. That's really important. If you do that and you follow those sorts of instructions, then I think you'll have a good job. So after this dries, in the next day or so, I'm going to come back out here. We're going to grout it, which is not too bad, but I'll probably show you a little bit of that maybe in another video. Anyway, just wanted to kind of share that with you. I hope this was somewhat helpful in laying out a floor. We're going to do a little video, of course, on our walls here, which we're doing a subway tile. But anyway, that's for it now. This is Jim from His Nature. Thanks for joining us, and remember to like and subscribe. We really appreciate you guys. Thanks.